Hello. One day in 1979, I gave my first presentation. It was before three Nigerian students. I was working as a lecturer. That was my first job. I was a lecturer in HIET St. Thomas Mount, Chennai. The audience were three Nigerian students. Now you must have seen Nigerian students. In those days, a lot of Nigerian students were in Chennai. Now they will have curly hair, utterly black, and then with fat, thick nose. So they were the audience. So the subject was thermodynamics. So I started, giving a lecture. What I had prepared lasted only for 15 minutes. So I didn't know what to do. So I told them, okay, take notes. And then, one student started sleeping. The remaining two students, they didn't have pens. So I gave my pen to one of them. And then I told him, please wake him up. And then the student gave me a strange look. And he said this. I will not forget what he said. He said, you wake him up. You only made him to sleep. So my first presentation was a total failure. So I had to learn. So I had to read a lot of books. So in those days, Google was not there, YouTube was not there. So I had to depend only on books. So I got one wonderful book in a book fair, Chennai book fair. The name of the book is Present Yourself. The author is Michael Gelb. That book transformed my way of giving presentation. I learned a lot of things from that book. Today, I am going to share some of the things which I have learned from that book. We will be talking about, first we will be talking about the audience. Any presentation should be audience focused. So think of them. Think of whom? Think of the audience. So that's the first thing which we will be looking into. The audience, age, gender, educational background, culture, and then what do they want to know? Why they are attending the presentation, my presentation. So all that, we should know as a presenter. So think of them. So we will start with that, and then we will go on to, how they remember things, build their recall. So we need to make our presentation memorable. So we want the audience to know and do something which we expect them to do. So how to make it memorable? How to make them to remember what we say? So build their recall. That's the topic. Build their recall. How to build their recall? How to help them to remember what we say? And then we come to the preparation. How to prepare a lecture? How to prepare a presentation? What are the things involved? Now we'll be learning one important technique introduced by the author Michael Gelb. It is known as mind mapping. How to map our mind. How to use both our brains, left brain and the right brain, and prepare our material for the presentation. But that technique is called mind mapping, and how to practice, how to rehearse, how to take help from others. So all these things we will see in rehearsal. Build the recall, and then perfect practice. How to do it? How to perfectly practice so that you can give a powerful, arresting, memorable presentation. Then comes the important thing about presentation. That is fear. So everybody is afraid of giving presentations. So more than half the population of this planet, afraid of one thing. You know what that is? That is giving presentation before a group of people. Why they are afraid? Because they are afraid of losing their esteem, losing their self-respect, humiliation. Others will laugh at us. So how to overcome fear and give a powerful presentation. How to transform fear for our advantage. So that's what we are going to see in transforming fear. And then comes the most important thing. While giving a presentation, what we need to do, we need to use our entire body. Research says only 7% of the content, is communicated through words, remaining 55% through body language, and then 38% through voice, tone, voice modulation, and things like that. So how to effectively use our body? So the focus is let our body talk. How to make our body talk so that we can give a arresting, powerful presentation. And then finally, we need to continuously improve. We need to improve constantly and forever. So this road to excellence. So what we should do so that we continuously improve. So we are going to see finally continuous improvement for giving a better and better presentation. Okay, now we'll start with think of them. What is that? Think of them. So think of them. Think of whom? Think of the audience. The presentation must be audience based. The presenter, the speaker must have a clear-cut objective. So what is that? So he must know, he must understand what the audience must know and do as a result of his presentation. See, what is that I expect from the audience? What is that I want the audience to know? What is that I want the audience to do as a result of my presentation? So this is very important. As I said, all presentations must be audience based. So it is not what the speaker speaks that is important. What is important? It is what the audience receives. That is important. So the presentation must be audience based. So we need to do a research about the audience. We need to know the age group of the audience. Now, we cannot give a presentation in the same way to different age grouped audiences. We need to, make the audience, make the presentation to suit the need of the requirement of the audience. So we need to know their age. We need to know their gender. We need to know their educational background. We need to know their culture. We need to understand why they are attending our presentation. We need to, understand what is their expectations. So we need to research, do a lot of research. Then only we can give a powerful presentation. So we need to think of our audience. We need to collect a lot of data about our audience. So then comes, building their recall. Build their recall. So you need to, make them remember what you tell them. So how do you build their recall? So building the recall. No, I tell you, before I tell you something about this topic, I want you to see one. I want you to do one exercise. Now I will project one 40 words on the screen. Is it projected? Yeah. So you see a 40 word, slide. There are 40 words there. So what you have to do is you have to read them one after the other, from left to right. Like you have to read all the 40 words right from the top, starting from the top, go through all the 40 words. You may take 1 minute to read all the words. After that, I will ask you some questions. Okay, I hope you would have read those 40 words. Now you'll have to tell me. So what are the words you remember? See, most probably, many of you would remember this word. Or this word. So why do you remember those two words, most of you? Because those two words are first in the list. So you remember those two words. And then some of you remember this word. Why do you remember this word? Because it is last in the list. And then many of you would have remembered this particular word. Dog. So why do you remember these two words, dog and plant? Because these two words have been repeated several times. And then some of you might remember this particular word. Because this is related, this has got some relevance to today's webinar. So many of you would remember this word. See, this is what our memory is. We remember what happens in the beginning. We remember what happens in the end. We remember what is repeated often. That's mechanism of our mind. So as presenters, we need to know this. So we need to start powerfully, and then we need to end powerfully, because that is the time where people are attentive. That is the time where people, that is the thing which the people remember. So we need to start powerfully and end powerfully. So these two areas we need to give a lot of importance. So what is that? What do you do during build the recall? You need to remember to start powerfully. So how do you start powerfully? You see, you might recall the way in which I started. I straight away, started sharing something with you. I didn't, introduce myself. I didn't tell you what I'm going to talk about. I straight away, started with an incident which happened in my life. So this is one of the powerful ways to start the presentation. Story. Story, the actual thing which happened in our lives, that stories. So people like to hear the stories which we have experienced in our lives. So we need to remember the the starting is very important. So they call it primacy effect. Primacy effect. So people remember what is said in the beginning. So we need to, as presenters, we need to understand this. And then comes recency. What is recency effect? What is said at the end? Somehow or other, people, perceive as the end approaches. Intuitively, people know that the lecturer or presenter is going to end. So they become alert. So this is called recency effect. Recency. So as presenters, we need to be, we need to know these two things. Primacy effect and recency effect, and we need to very carefully plan our presentation to make use of these effects. And then the third thing is, many of you remembered these two words. What words? Dog and plant. Why did they remember dog and plant? Because it was repeated many times. 3-4 times it was there in that 40 words list. Dog and plant. So many of you remember those two words. So what is the lesson for us? We need to repeat. Repeat. No, you must be knowing a preacher's rule. Tell them what you are going to tell them. Tell them. Tell them what you told them. So 3 times you are repeating the same thing. So repeat. So that is the secret of making your audience recall what you tell them. And then 2 more things are there. So build the recall. So 2 more things. So you start powerfully, you end powerfully, and then you repeat. What you need to know is you need to emphasize unusually. So when whatever is emphasized unusually, the people tend to remember that. So suddenly you start something, and then you raise your voice, and then you use some visuals. So you emphasize. So that is remembered by the audience. So emphasize unusually, and then you need to involve them. Now, how do you involve the audience? There are many ways by which you can involve the audience. You can ask them questions. The questions could be, actual questions or rhetoric. So what is rhetoric question? You ask a question and you don't expect an answer. Or do you understand? So this is a rhetoric question. I don't expect an answer to this question, but I ask this question. Are you with me? I don't expect an answer. So likewise, you involve your audience. That's very, very important in presentation. Otherwise, they will go off to sleep. You will lose them. You need to hook them, and then you need to keep them hooked. So you need to engage them. The other things are also important in building their recall. So you need to start on time. That is very important. And then you need to end on time. That is also important. And one more important thing is that, what that is? You need to give them frequent breaks. So research, during they have found out in a research that when frequent breaks are given, say the breaks mean 10 minutes break between 2 10 minutes break between 1.5 hour session. So when that was given, they found out that the retention level was much higher. So we need to begin on time. We need to end on time. That's not enough. We need to give frequent breaks. So all this will help us to make the audience to recall what is said. So that is the more important. We want the audience to remember what we say. So we need to remember this. We need to understand it, and then we need to make them remember by all these things. How do you do that? So we must understand the primacy effect. So we need to start with a bang. We need to start powerfully. So because of the primacy effect, we need to make advantage of the primacy. And then we need to end powerfully. And then we need to repeat. So all these repetition will help them to remember. And then we need to emphasize the key points unusually so that they will remember that. And then we need to, involve them. We need to involve the audience. So in webinars like this, I find it very difficult to get them involved. I don't see them face to face. I'm talking only to the camera. So it is very difficult for me to involve them. Not only to me, whoever takes webinar, they experience this difficulty. But somehow, if it is a webinar, it is okay. So face-to-face presentations, you need to involve them. You need to look at them. You need to ask them questions. You need to give them some exercise. You need to make them do something. So all this will involve them. So once they get involved in what is going on, then only they will remember whatever is said. Otherwise, they will forget. Now you need to keep your attention. Now we come to the next important part of presentation. That is perfect practice. Now, before giving any presentations, we need to prepare. So the preparation starts with the mind mapping. I told you in the beginning, that book, the author Michael Gelb introduced one important concept for preparation that is called mind mapping. So I'm going to tell you what is mind mapping. Definitely it will help you to prepare in a better way for any presentations. So what is mind mapping? The brain. In this century only, a lot of research is going on about the brain. In 1960, the Nobel laureate, his name is Roger Sperry. He and his team conducted a lot of research on human brain. So what they found out was, they found out our brain, there are two hemispheres, left hemisphere, right hemisphere. They found out that the left hemisphere is responsible for logic and analysis. And also the 3 R's. What are the 3 R's? Reading, writing, and arithmetic. So the left brain is responsible for all this. Organizing, scheduling, numbers, dealing with numbers. All this left brain activities. And then the right brain. So the right brain is responsible for imagination, creativity, imageries, spatial relationships, music, and things like that. Color. These are some of the things of the right brain activities, right brain response. As you all know, so we give a lot of importance to the left brain. So we are all left brain biased. So if you are good at reading, and if you are good at writing, and if you are good at arithmetic, then you are called brainy. And then if you are, if you are good at imagination, if you are good at daydreaming, if you are, if you are able to, make rhythmic noise on the desk, you will be viewed in a different light. So they will say you are a problematic person. So the society is left brain based. But on in presentation, as I said earlier, so when I'm standing here and giving you a presentation, so whatever I'm telling is only 7%. So that is listened by, that is absorbed by your left brain. On the other hand, your right brain is seeing the video. So the right brain is seeing my entire body. So your right brain is seeing my hands. I'm making some gesture. So the right brain is receiving some message. So the tone of my voice, the modulation of my voice, all are recorded. All are the right brain activities. The right brain gets tuned to that. And then a lot of messages are communicated by all these gestures, facial expressions, eye contact, posture. So all these, 55%, all this message is being received by the right brain. So we need both the brains. So even for preparing a presentation, so you need your left brain, you need your right brain. So use your right brain, and then you generate a lot of ideas. So the right brain is creative. Right brain is imaginative. Right brain is, understands spatial relationship. So you use your right brain, generate alternatives. You use your right brain, generate a lot of ideas for your presentation. And then you use your left brain. And then you organize your material. You sequence your material. You order your material. So you need both the brains for preparing your presentation. But mostly, people don't do this. So what they do instead they use what is called outlining. What is outlining? So when they are asked to give a presentation, they sit and take a paper and then write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is called outlining. This method, has got its own drawbacks. So I'm going to tell you an alternative. What is that? Mind mapping. So why mind mapping? So we are going to use mind mapping to prepare for a wonderful presentation. The mind mapping for preparation. So who is the originator of mind mapping technique? His name is Tony Buzan. Tony Buzan. He's a Britisher. He is an author. He has written a number of books on this subject. He is a brain researcher. You must have heard about him. So go to the net and type Tony Buzan. You will get a lot of references about him. So Tony Buzan. So what is the first step in mind mapping? So you have to write down the topic, whatever the topic may be, the presentation topic. So you have to write it at the center of the paper. So while writing, we need to use pictures. We need to use drawing. We need to use color. We need to use symbols. Why all this? because we need to engage our right brain. As I said earlier, left brain is responsible for logic and analysis and the 3 R's. Right brain is creative, imaginative, likes imageries. Imageries means that which is appealing to the senses. That is right brain. So color is appealing to our senses. Symbol is appealing to our senses. Drawing and sketches are appealing to our senses. So we need to use both our brains to prepare for the preparation or the presentation. So what is the rule number 1? Write the topic on the center. Let us take an example today, and we will prepare the mind map. The topic is cars. Cars. So I draw a car now. This is a car. Say car. So you are asked to give a presentation on cars, passenger cars. So don't worry about the drawing. No, we are not the artist. So what is important is some sketches. Now I have made one rough sketch on car. It's not very good. Even then, that doesn't matter. So that will stimulate our right brain. That small picture will stimulate our right brain. So draw a car. So we are going to give a lecture on cars. So we are preparing now. So keywords. The next point is you'll have to identify keywords. So what are keywords? So keywords stimulate our thoughts. Keywords unlock a lot of new, things. So we need to identify keywords for this presentation. So I, think one of the keyword is history. What is history? History of cars. So when was the first car manufactured? When did the automation of cars begin? So when did people start buying a lot of cars? Which was the first country which used most of the cars? So history. So you start from 1 o'clock. So 1 o'clock direction, you write history. And then next line is, next keyword is statistics. So what are the statistics? How many cars are being, one of the statistics is how many cars are being manufactured in the world per year? Anybody knows the answer? The question is, how many cars are being manufactured in the world per year? Any answer? What is that? So the answer is 8 crores on an average. So 8 crores cars are being manufactured in the world per year. One more question I asked. Statistics. Who is the leading player? That is, who is the manufacturer? Who makes the most number of cars? Any answer? Who makes the most number of cars? Million is correct. The 10 million is 1 crore. 78 million is roughly 7.8 crores. Right answer. The correct answer, Toyota. So likewise, you write number of statistics about the car. How many cars are manufactured in India? There was one news in the papers few days before. Hyundai, the motor company in Irungatkottai, they had rolled out their 10 millionth car. No, they have made 10 million cars so far from till the time of their inception. They have made 10 million cars. That was the news. So likewise, you can write down a lot of statistics. And then what else you can, the keyword, what are the keywords about cars? Types of cars. There are a number of types are available. So we talk about hatchback, sedan, SUV, and so many models. So you can think of all that, and then you can branch out. You can branch out. And then what else? What are the other keywords? So history, statistics, types, and then the technology. So the technology is improving day by day. About 10 years back, there was no talk of airbags. Now the airbags have been made compulsory. And then about 5-10 years back, there was no talk of automatic transmission. Now most of the cars have got automatic transmission. And then we hear about driverless cars. Now all those things you can cover: driverless cars, automatic transmission, and things like that. You can branch out. And then finally, what else? What else you can use? So history, statistics, types, technology. Any answer? Yes? What is the answer?
Disadvantages of using cars.
Yeah. Yeah, very good. You can write that. Disadvantages. So you can talk about pollution and things like that. Okay, so we have written the 5 major the keywords. After writing the keywords, what you have to do, you have to branch out. See, what is the advantage from outlining to mind mapping? In mind mapping, you use both your brains. The idea is to generate as many ideas as possible. So the 5 keywords are branched out now. Now you can think about that. You can think about statistics. You get some idea, you write it there. And then you got some idea about history. So you Google and find out some idea about the types. Wherever the ideas come, you keep recording onto that paper. Keep writing onto that paper. And then if you want, you can add color. You can add symbols. You can connect these two if you want. Connect this idea and this idea. So a lot of things you can do. So there are 2 phases in mind mapping. The first phase is generating ideas. So the main reason for using mind mapping is generation of ideas. As many ideas as possible about the subject. So your mind is free. Whatever comes to your mind, you have to write it down. Don't question that idea. So if you get some idea, don't analyze the idea now. That is not, it's not the time. So it is like brainstorming. So some of you must have heard about brainstorming. So what is brainstorming? There is one rule in brainstorming. Defer judgment. What is deferring judgment? So when ideas are being generated, you do not judge whether idea will work or not. Defer judgment. In the same way, so what is that we are trying to do? We are trying to generate as many ideas as possible. So that is our aim. So we want to get number of ideas about cars. So we have got some 5 key words. So you can add a few more words also if you want. So the key words will trigger your mind for action. So your mind will generate ideas. So both them are mind, your left brain and your right brain, both put together. The first phase you generate a number of ideas. And the second phase, you use your left brain alone, and then you organize that idea. So you may think, see, I have got a lot of ideas now. So how to organize? Which has to be, said first? Which has to be said last? So you may start with, statistics that will, arrest the audience attention. They will want to know statistics about cars. So you may start with that. So you may begin powerfully by giving some, startling statistics. So your left brain comes in and the left brain organizes the idea. Now we have to redo the mind mapping again. That is very important. So you have the mind map now, and then you use your left brain and redraw the mind map again. And then third thing what you must do is you must put that mind map. You have to memorize the mind map. So how do you memorize the mind map? You redo it again and again, 2-3 times. So 2-3 times when you redo it, so all the ideas which you have generated, all the ideas which have been organized systematically in the mind map will be remembered by you. So you don't need to have any paper with you. You don't need to have any notes with you, because the mind map which you have created is in your mind. So that's the point. So preparation, you use mind map. So you memorize the mind map. And then what do you do during preparation? What else you have to do? You need to, keep your visualization positive. What does it mean? So you have been asked to give a presentation. Right from that day when you are asked to give a presentation, your mind starts generating a lot of negative ideas, negative visuals. So you should not allow that to happen. You need to keep the visualization positive. What is that? So you need to imagine that you are going and standing before the audience, and then you are giving the presentation. Everybody is appreciating you. All these are positive visualization. The positive visualization helps. So even top class athletes, they practice that. So our mind is our best friend, and also our mind is our worst enemy. So if you allow your mind, what will happen? It will start generating all negative things. You will become fearful of the day, the presentation day. They will be afraid. So you should not allow that to happen. So you need to visualize positively. And then you need to rehearse. So you have got the mind map with you. Now stand before the mirror and then give your presentation. And then ask one of your friends, and again give the presentation to him or her. And ask him or her to give you some feedback. So for some important presentation, you can do what is known as devil's advocate. What is devil's advocate? Now you can invite a few of your friends and ask them, to point out only the negative things in the presentation. So they will sit before you, you are giving the presentation, they will only point out the negative things. So they are devil's advocate. That is one way of practicing. So there is no end to practice. So practice, practice, practice. Perfect practice. So that's the title of this topic. perfect practice. Now, before we move on to the three more things, what are they? Fear. Fear is the worst enemy for any presentation. So how do you overcome fear? Not only overcoming fear, how do you transform fear to your advantage? That is, we are going to see. The next is, how do we, allow our body to talk? I told you, 55% of the communication is through your body. The way in which you stand, the way in which you move, the way in which you use the hands, the way in which you use your voice, and then the way in which you make eye contact. All these are important. So you must allow your body to talk. The presenting is not simply standing like this and being a talking head. Do not be a talking head. So it will be boring. You will make your audience to sleep. So use your voice powerfully. Use your eyes and draw out the audience. That we are going to see. So how to overcome fear, how to transform fear, how to give a powerful presentation by letting our body to talk. And then finally, we are going to see the road to excellence, the road to continuous improvement. So in this session, we are going to see three things actually. So another 20 or 30 minutes. The first one is transforming fear. The second one is let your body talk. The third one is the road to excellence, continuous improvement. So let us now start with transform fear. See, I told you, the fear is universal. Fear of public speaking is universal. So we do not worry about that. It is not unique to one of us. It is universal. So that thought should give us lot of comfort. And then, how do you overcome that fear? That's the question, right? So you need to be aware. So awareness is the key. So if you are not aware of what is happening, inside you, you are bound to fail. And if you are aware of what is going on within you, so I am under the influence of fear. I am fearful. So you are aware now. But fear, what happens when you are in fear? See, sometimes back, there was a research. 100 people were in one particular room. They were all asked to stand up. They all stood up. And then there was a loud noise. What happened to all of them? They didn't expect that noise. They were all afraid. What happened to them was, same thing happened to all of them. What that same thing? Their throat, got tensed. First of all, the throat got tensed. And then they started to breathe. They had started to breathe faster. And then what happened? The major, joint area became contracted. So this is what happened to all of them, all the 100 of them. So the researchers identified this pattern and then they gave it a name. What is the name? Startling pattern. So we need to be aware of that. When we are afraid, all these things will happen to us also. Our throat will become dry. The muscles will get tensed. The breathing will become faster. But we need to be aware of that. So what? What next? I am afraid. I am fearful. But I am in control. That's what we say. So the key is, one of the keys for overcoming fear is face the fear. No, do not run away from fear. Face it. Yes. Accept it. Accept what is. So if you accept what is, then you will ask, so what? What next? Then your mind is free now. So you are facing fear. You know that you are afraid. And then you ask yourself, what next? So awareness. You need to be aware of fear. And then there are a lot of other techniques. I told you, when you are in fear, when you are afraid, breathing, you're breathing. You start breathing faster. So breathing is an index of the mind. So one controls the other. Breathing, fear controls breathing. Hence, breathing controls fear. So both are interrelated. If you see that your breathing, will not get affected, you will escape from the startling pattern. So how do you do that? You consciously start breathing deeper and deeper. So that is why many experts advise us to breathe deeper before giving the presentation. So you're getting up from your seat, you're walking towards the stage. What you need to do? Breathe deeper. So we are fortunate. We all of us are born in India. Most of us who are listening to me. So we are fortunate. Why we are fortunate? A lot of work has been done by our forefathers in this area. Breath control, leads to mind control. Now, Ramana Maharishi has written 20 poems. 20 poems that is called, essence of his teaching. In 2 poems, he talks about this breath control. A lot of our ancestors have done a lot of studies on the human mind and the breathing and things like that, and then they have developed a lot of things for us to follow. So we are fortunate in that aspect. Yoga systems have been developed. The mind control has been developed. Meditation, a lot of meditation. See, there are some Buddhist schools which offer you, 10 days meditation course, which helps you to control your mind as well as your body. So we need to undergo all these things. We need to control our mind from fear. So we need to control our breathing. So a lot of breathing techniques are available to us. Pranayama, what is that? A lot of other things, I forgot the names. So once you start practicing, definitely you will see the result. Definitely you will see the result. So to overcome fear, you need to, be aware of your body. You need to be aware of your breathing. You need to breathe consciously. You need to take deeper and abdominal breathing. They call it abdominal breathing. So what is abdominal breathing? Deep breathing. So what do we normally do? Normally we use our chest for breathing. So you observe a small baby, 6 months old baby laying on the bed and sleeping. You observe its breathing. Its stomach will go up and down. So the small baby uses its stomach for breathing. We adults, we use our chest for breathing. Which is better? So the baby's method is better. It uses its abdomen. So yogic experts, what do they say? They say use your abdomen for breathing. It's called abdominal breathing. You can learn that technique. That will help you to transform fear. You become calm. So as your breathing becomes calm, your mind also will become calm. The breathing is an index of your mind. So that is one way by which you can transform fear. Other ways, warm-up exercises. Say you can jog. So what do you do when you jog like this? So the blood starts circulating at a faster rate. Your heartbeat your heart starts beating at a faster rate. So you move your hands like this. So these are simple exercises. So the author Michael Delp says warming up exercises. You do that before giving a presentation. You warm up your body. Why do you need to warm up your body? You need to make the blood move faster. That will overcome the fear, he says. A lot of warming up exercise. Simple exercises. Simple exercises. So you can learn all these exercises. There are a lot of things available in the net. You can learn some simple exercises, warming up exercises. You do them before giving a presentation. Not only giving before the presentation, do it regularly. You keep fit, then the fear will be less. If you are not fit, you will have more fear. That is a fact. You need to be fit to overcome fear. Finally, there are some comfortable thoughts. What are the comfortable thoughts? The audience wants you to succeed. That is what the audience wants, because the audience have invested their time. They have come here. They have come to attend your presentation. They have invested their time, energy, money. They want you to succeed. They do not want you to overcome by fear. So that thought should give you a lot of comfort. And then what else? You as a presenter, you are in a powerful position. See, what is that powerful position? You are standing here and you are talking. You are sitting and listening. So you are in a powerful position. You are in a commanding position. Realize that. That will drive out the fear. You enjoy that commanding, powerful position. And then finally, remember that the audience are also like you. They also undergo fear. So don't be afraid of them. So this is how we can transform fear. Now we'll go to the most important part, that is, let your body talk. What is that? Let your body talk. So 55% of the message is conveyed through your body. That is the way in which you stand. That is your posture. And then the way in which you move about while giving the presentation. And then the gesture. And then your facial expression. All these convey 55% of the message. And then 38%. 38% of the message is conveyed by your voice. The voice is an important part of your presentation. The voice, the tone of your voice, the volume, then the pitch, and then the voice modulation, and then the way in which you pronounce the words, and then the most important thing, the pauses in between the words. Altogether, they convey 38% of the message, remaining 7%. Only the content, words. So we need to remember this. So the right brain of the audience. So as you are standing here and giving presentation, you must remember the right brain of your audience is longing for what it is longing for. Imageries. What are imageries? Imageries are things which are appealing to the five senses. So you tell a story. Ooh, the right brain becomes active. They all listen to the story because a story contains a lot of imageries which are appealing to the senses. So you need to see you move your body. And then you give a dance. And then the right brain is enjoying that. So you must, what's the, now when I was asked one question sometime back. What's the most important job of a presenter? Otherwise, teacher. What's the most important job of a teacher? All of them said teaching, training, making the students to pass the examination. But all these are not the right answer. Anybody knows the answer? What is the most important job of a presenter? What he must do most importantly? That's the question. Any answer? Okay, I will give you a clue. It starts with the alphabet E. You must do that. It starts with E. To make the audience understand the message. Okay, but that is not the most important. What is the most important job of a presenter? What he must focus on? So what did happen to me when I gave the first presentation? One fellow started sleeping. Why did he sleep? Because my lecture was boring. I would have given him information, but he did not get interest. So what I should have done? No,
Eye contact.
Yes?
Eye contact.
Eye contact. Okay. Yeah, eye contact, no, I agree. Eye contact is one of the important elements of the presentation, body language. So you draw the audience out through your eye. The eye is the most personalizing element in our body. Engage. So E is not E. It's not engage. It starts with E. Okay, I will tell you. It is entertain. So your presenter must entertain. So if I don't entertain you, you will simply stand and go away. I won't know whether you are here or not. So first and foremost important task of a presenter is to entertain. Somehow or other, you must make the talk interesting to the audience. You must somehow entertain the audience. How do you entertain the audience? You must feed the right brain of your audience. Then they will get entertained. if you give a lot of information, if you show them slides after slides after slides, they will get fed up. And then they will waiting for you to end up this session. They unknowingly they will turn towards the door. As soon as you say it is over, they will rush to the door. That's what will happen. So a lot of presenters do the mistake of feeding only the left brain of the audience. So you must understand, the right brain has to be fed. Then only they will get entertained. So how do you feed the right brain? By your body. See, the way in which you stand, the way in which you move, the way in which you do gesture, the way in which you move towards them, the way in which you use your face. All this feed the right brain of the audience. They get entertained. Okay, first is the 5 elements. In Let Your Body Talk, there are 5 elements. What are they? The first one, the foremost important one, is the posture. So what should be your posture? Balanced, upright, and poised. So it communicates confidence. So the audience see you, and then they unknowingly know that you are confident, because your posture tells them that. They know that you are confident. So your posture, you don't speak. Your posture communicates that. How should be your posture? Balanced resting state. It is called balanced resting state. See, you stand like this, about 1 foot apart, shoulder length apart, and then your weight is balanced on both your legs, and then your hands are hanging on your sides, your shoulders are dropped, you are upright, number 1. Number 2, you are balanced. Number 3, you are poised and relaxed. So this is how, a lot of artists, the stage artists, they take years together and practice this. This is very important posture. So in athletics and in sports, the basic posture, they maintain the basic posture. For example, in table tennis, this is the basic posture. In presentation, you need to maintain a basic posture. Very important. You should not stand like this. You should not stand like this. You should not support stand like this. No! You must maintain a basic posture. Upright, balanced, poised and relaxed. The next point is, first one is posture, the second one is movement. What is movement? So you don't need to stand in your basic posture like a statue all the time. No, you are in your basic posture. Then you are at liberty to move. So when you drive home a point to the audience, when you want them to understand the point, you move towards them. When you want to emphasize, you move towards them. And when you want them to think about what you have just said, you move backwards. And then you don't know where to move. You don't know how to move. Then come back to your basic posture. So this is how we must practice. So stand in one place, the basic posture. The athletes practice this, the sports people practice this. So you need to come back. You need to take off from the basic posture and then come back to your basic posture. You go from here and then come back again. Go from here. Table tennis player does that. So he is always having basic posture. He moves and then comes back. So that is it. The movement. The lively, energetic movement will arrest the audience attention. It feeds the right brain of the audience. So posture, movement. Then comes gesture. What is gesture? What is gesture? What is gesture? See, this is gesture. See, I move my hands. So hand movements. No, we communicate a lot of things by the hand. No, we communicate confidence. You know, we communicate a lot of other things. Sincerity. But I communicate sincerity. That's by opening my hands. Sincerity. Appeal. A lot of things. So you use the hands most powerfully. Gesture. You know, if you are afraid, you will not use the hand at all. So free your body. Loosen your body. Be free. Then everything will be all right. So all these elements are interconnected. If the posture is right, the movement will be right. If the movement is right, gesture will automatically come. As far as the gesture is concerned, what experts advise is beware of unwanted, irrelevant gestures, they say. Beware of. No, whatever you do consciously with your hands will make an impact. Say, awareness is the key. I am aware of what I am doing. Well, in most of the speakers, they do the hand gestures without awareness. What are they? Pencil twisting, pen twisting. And then what? Hand wringing, hair combing, and then change in the pocket rattling, pocket change rattling. All these are, unwanted and irrelevant, done without consciousness of the speaker. They will, lessen the impact of your presentation. Be aware of it and remove them. As unwanted gestures get removed from you, what remains will make an impact. So gesture. So what next? The voice. The voice is, as I said, is the most powerful element of your presentation. 38% of the message is communicated by the voice. As far as the voice is concerned, what is important? Pause. What is important? You need to give pause between words. In music, what is important? The pause between the notes is important. In speech, what is important? The pause is important. Learn to pause. Don't speak continuously, monotonously. It will bore the audience. It's a sure way to make them go to sleep. So you need to give pause. And then you need to, you should not speak in monotone. You need to raise your voice, lower your voice modulation. And then pitch, tone, volume. So you need to use volume properly. You should not shout at the ears of the audience. You may ask them, am I audible? I hope I am audible now. I'm not shouting at you. You need to be aware of that. The voice is the most powerful element of your presentation. And finally, the fifth one. What is the fifth one? Eye contact. The eye is the most personalizing element in our body. So eye contact is the most, powerful in giving a presentation. The most of the speakers, they don't, make eye contact. They are afraid. So making eye contact need to be practiced. So during your one-to-one conversation, what you need to do is, when you're talking to your friend or somebody, look at his eye and talk. This is how we can practice. The most powerful tool which we have. So when you talk to the audience, when you look at their eyes, and when you make eye contact, they feel involved. Their attention level increases. Their retention again increases. So you need to use eye contact more powerfully. Supposing you're talking to a group of, say, 40 people. So identify one friendly face in the left side and talk to him or her. All others will get the impact. And then in the middle, identify another friendly face and talk to her or him. The people who are sitting nearby will get the impact. In the same way, identify another friendly face. So if you know the secret, you derive a lot of energy by doing that. So I have been teaching since 1979. I know this secret. When you stand before an audience and when you talk, your energy gets drained. If you want to recharge your batteries, you need energy. So how do you get energy? By looking at the eyes of your audience. You get energy. That's the secret of great presenters. They energize. They stand here and continuously speak hours together. How is it possible? They are continuously getting recharged. So the audience gives them energy. Okay, having said all this, one most important point I want to make now. You know what? What is that most important point? Synchrony, synchronization. What is that synchronization? Synchronization between the body language and the message. So the message and the body language must be synchronized. If it is not, what will happen? You will appear phony. You will appear insincere. You will appear beady-eyed. You will appear crooked. Why? People will easily find out. Your body will not lie. You can lie. You can speak lie. Your body will not lie. So the synchrony must be there. See, you both must be matched. So what you say, what you practice. What you practice, what you say. If that happens, the synchrony will be there. Body and message. Body message synchrony, then the message will be very, very powerful. Now, we are coming to the last part of the session. That is the road to excellence. The road to excellence. The road to excellence. So how do you take that road to excellence? No, you must have the desire. What is the desire? Desire for continuous improvement. So what is continuous improvement? Improve constantly and forever. That is continuous improvement. So we can never be perfect, but that should not discourage us. So every day, every minute, Every second we must improve. How do you improve? By getting feedback. So in management, some of the listeners who are from industry, they know PDCA. What is PDCA? PDCA is plan, do, check, act. So what you must do, you must rotate this wheel. So what is P? You plan a presentation. You wait for an opportunity to give a presentation. So you got a chance, you got an opportunity to give a presentation. So plan for the presentation. What is do? Carry it out. And then check. What is the result? What is that my audience have got? Did they get what I wanted them to get? Or not? The result. Check the result of your presentation and take corrective action, act. So what you have to do? Every time you give presentation, you'll have to do PDCA, PDCA, PDCA. Otherwise, you'll have to rotate that wheel, PDCA. How you must rotate that wheel? You have to rotate that wheel upward, uphill. Rotate that wheel uphill. Uphill. PDCA. 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 Uphill. So you are going up, continuously improving. So I want to quote Swami Vivekananda before I close. Swami Vivekananda says, struggle harder than ever before till you reach perfection. So we need to struggle harder than ever before till we reach perfection. So it's a never-ending journey. Thank you for listening to me. We will be conducting similar programs continuously. So you can go to our website. You can also see the monthly calendar. So you may register and attend those two programs. Thank you very much.